I would like to start this session with a quote from Yuval Noah Harari's recent book. He wrote a book, 21 Lessons from 21st Century, where he says a common enemy is the best catalyst for forging a common identity. And if I stop here, everyone will think we'll go to China, but let me continue. And humankind now has at least 3 such enemies. One is nuclear war, the other is technological disruption, and the third one is climate change. So in a way, the world should come together to address the issue of climate change. In fact, the third largest carbon emitter of the world after China and the US, India has maintained that it is on a course to outperform its Paris Climate Agreement pledge to reduce its carbon footprint by 33 to 35% from 2005 levels by 2030. In fact, the fact that India is placed among the top 10 countries to have adopted substantial measures to mitigate climate change as per the Climate Change Performance Index 2021 is an indicator that it is on the right track. However, there are indeed a lot of challenges in this process, and there are a lot of milestones to achieve too. So with a run-up to COP26, it will be important to see the strategies of net zero emissions from countries of Indo-Pacific. We will better be able to understand this space from our expert speaker, Dr. Anjal Prakash. He's the research director of Bharti Institute of Public Policy. His session is titled as the run-up to COP26, Evolving a Climate Diplomacy for the Indo-Pacific. So let me briefly introduce him. Prior to working with ISB, Anjal was with Terry School of Advanced Studies in New Delhi and associate professor in the Department of Regional Water Studies. Anjal is the coordinating lead author for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It's a special report on ocean and aerospace in the changing climate. Yeah. So his work focuses on water and climate change, urban resilience, gender, and social inclusion issues connecting to South Asia. So with a master's degree in social work from Tata Institute of Social Studies and doctoral degree in social and environmental sciences from Wageningen University in Netherlands in 2005, Anjal has 2 decades of experience in working on water and climate change. So focusing on policy, research, advocacy, capacity building, knowledge management, networking, and implementation of large-scale and multi-country climate change and development projects in South Asia. I mean, he's also the author of quite some books, and the recent one is, I think, the Dark Zone, Groundwater Irrigation Policies and Social Power. He does extensive research and publishes in various academic journals and also serves in editorial boards in many reputed journals. He is a regular contributor to various media publications. In fact, we often get an email, ISB News, and I find his name almost once in a week without fail. So which shows that he thinks and writes on subjects that he is into quite regularly. So all applauds to Anjal, and with that, over to you, Anjal. So basically, Anjal will likes this to be more interactive, and he wants you all to participate. So let's see how he does that.
Thank you, Sridhar, so much, and a very warm welcome to all of you. And thanks so much for this generous introduction. I don't think I'm worth that much of introduction, but definitely I'll try and live up to whatever you said so far. I also want to welcome David Moyer, the public affairs officer from U.S. Consulate, and I also watch him from distance. His work is excellent, especially as I see it in media. So welcome, David, also to the session. And I welcome all of you, the attendees, the people who are listening to me at this moment, journalists. Some of you have really worked closely with you, as well as some of you who are probably aspirant from this region. So thank you so much, Sridhar, and everybody to listening to me. What I will do is that we have about an hour. I have an interactive lecture. This is, let me just first put on the, okay, yes, my presentation, and then I'll tell you what the way I'm going to take this further. Okay, so the title of my presentation, because now we are, as you know, that the COP26 is the hot cake at this moment, where we are, everybody is trying to see what is going to happen at COP26. So probably after Paris negotiations is one of the defining moment in the history that we have at this moment of international diplomacy, as well as climate change issue, which is coming to us as a force multiplier in many parts as we are experiencing. So my session today is actually focusing on what should be India's stand on net zero. And this is definitely in the context of India being one of the major players in the Quad countries, as well as in the global south. So that's one part of it. But I have divided my presentation in two parts. The first part is more kind of interactive, because I was told it's going to be a slightly a master class. So I'm going to have an interactive lecture. What I've done is that I have the first part is basically on the very basics of climate change. And these are quizzes. So I'll just place a quiz and I'll try and see if you could just vote for those quizzes. Well, for that, what you need to do is open your smartphone. And if you see here, we have on this side, we have this URL called slido.com. Once you reach, you can actually just log into slido.com from your smartphone or from your internet mobile, any device that you're using. And you have to enter the number 787-884. If you have if you can scan, you can actually scan this barcode. It will take you directly there. So I request all of you to please first log in and just tell me what are the environmental challenges that you think is faced by India today. What are the major one key environmental challenge that you think is faced by India today? I see 2 people have logged in. Please start logging in. It's an open text, so just type, what do you think is the key environmental challenges? We already have some response from people in the dry run that I did. So ignore that and just write your own.
It's slido.com. Maybe you can type that. Yeah.
Or from your smartphone, you can actually scan the barcode. It will take you directly there. You need to have an internet connection, obviously. You'll have very short time, 1 minute for you to write just one quick keyword. That'll be good. I see only 4 people have logged in. Please log in. If you're facing any problem, can you just unmute and let us know, or just write in the chat box. Okay. Because in the interest of time, let me just not wait, but I see the people have written about air pollution, definitely depletion of forest land, climate change is becoming some of the big issues. As you go along, I see, yeah, now there's some more responses are coming in. Waste management, definitely yes. Extinction of species, sustainable growth, pollution, deforestation. So this is the word clouds. As you see, more and more people write about a certain word. It is going to show us what is, the issue, more prominent issue as you think is here. I see some of you written forest fires, sustainable growth, rapid urbanization. Deforestation is becoming a one major ones, definitely. Okay, fine. I just keep writing, and there's more quizzes like this. And so please don't log out, just log in there itself. I'll just go along and tell you what exactly going to be next. Okay, so I'll tell you what are the 5 major challenges that I think India is facing, and then I'm sure we can match this up with what you have, and more or less it is actually matching. But just tell you, so definitely first and foremost is about climate change. It's out there, and you see from the Kerala flood to Uttarakhand flood to cyclones that we are having. So climate change is day in and day out. India is facing. One more issue, as you may have, as journalists, you may have seen that climate change issues used to be page 4, 5, 6, in the newspaper. Now it is hitting the headlines. So it is coming on everyday basis, and even if you want to avoid, you will not be avoid this issue. So that's one part of it, shows that the issue is becoming very, very prominent. The second is about water shortage. Some of you have already written, there's a huge gap between demand and supply that is also increasing. This is our environmental challenges. Rising temperature. I think the earth temperature is increasing at a very unprecedented rate, right? The recent IPCC report said that it has never happened in 2000 years of human history. So you can imagine the kind of information that we have at this moment, the kind of rising temperature. We are going to exceed all limits in the temperature rise, and that is having a profound implication of the lives and the people. I'll explain to you slightly more as we go. Urbanization, some of you have written about urbanization. This is the urbanization that India is facing is unplanned. It is also bringing in more and more risk because of climate-induced risk and hazards, and that's another one. Some of you have talked about pollution, industrial pollution, be it air pollution or water pollution, or effluent management. Waste management was one of the issues which was flagged by some of you. This is the rising economy that India has. These are issues becoming prominent because there's a lack of regulation, and that's one worrisome issue that we all have. So these are the issues that we have. I'm not looking at the Q&A now. I'll open it up for question and answers, and I'll answer all the questions. So don't worry if any of, please keep writing as you get the questions in your mind, and I'll try and answer most of them as much as possible, as much as we have time, but I'll try and answer them. Okay, what are the key sectors which will be affected by climate change? I think this is no-brainer: health, economic growth, food security, and water. These are 4 major sectors which will be severely affected, which is actually being affected. If you look at any of the issues that India is facing at this moment, we are severely affected by these sectors that have been affected. Let me just come to another question. The question is, the overwhelming majority of scientists agree that climate change is real and caused by human. What do you think? Is it true or false? Just vote for it. This is me being part of the IPCC process. So I'm part of the second working group 2 of IPCC, which focuses on adaptation issues. And I'm in the chapter on urbanization, especially looking at cities and key infrastructure, as well as in the cross-chapter paper on mountain. And I'm also doing what we call the cross-chapter box on gender issues and gender and climate change issues. So these are the issues I'm dealing with. I'm telling you from my personal experience that the scientists do agree that climate change is real and it's caused by humans. But what do you think? Do you think it's true or false? Okay, so far only 5 of you have signed up. Please do sign up and keep signing in because we have more and more questions. Yeah. I'll wait for 30 more seconds and then I'll go further. So as I'm saying, this house is in agreement at this moment that there's the climate change really is caused by humans. So that's no brainer. I don't think this is an issue. But the second one, which is more contentious, which of the following is not a greenhouse gas? What do you think? Carbon dioxide, CH4, water vapor, nitrogen, and methane. Which one do you think is not a greenhouse gas? Please vote. So Mahesh, I saw your question and I'll answer this at the end, but some of these answers will be actually hidden in my presentation itself. I'll come to that, Mahesh, but thanks for asking this question. So you have 30 more seconds to go. Which of the following is not a greenhouse gas? Now, all of you are reporting on climate change issues. I'm just trying to tickle a bit to see how far you know about the issues. Yeah. So don't worry about right and wrong answer. Just think and put it as you know. Okay, let me just to give you the result of the poll. So wonderful, but majority of you think it's water vapor, which is not a greenhouse gas, but actually it's not true. It's nitrogen, which is not a greenhouse gas. Okay, so some 22% of you have actually are right. So congratulations to those who have thought about it. CO2 and CH4 are greenhouse gas. Water vapor is also greenhouse gas. And that has been, a lot of people do not know. So let me just tell you what is about nitrogen. So nitrogen is a heat trapping greenhouse gas, which absorbs and emits radiation within the thermal infrared range. Water vapor and carbon dioxide and methane, CH4, are Earth's most abundant greenhouse gas. Okay, nitrogen, which makes up about 80% of Earth's atmosphere, is not a greenhouse gas. This is because its molecule, which is contained 2 atoms of the same element, are unaffected by infrared light. Okay, so when you absorb the infrared range, then you become a gas in the sense, right? The greenhouse gas. So here nitrogen is not a greenhouse gas, though it is in abundance. Okay, let me check one more thing from you. Again, log in and tell me what is the increase in average global temperature on Earth since 1870 till date. So from the pre-industrial age till now, what do you think is the average global temperature rise in the world? How much has the temperature risen? Please log in and tell me. I repeat this again. What is the increase in average global temperature on Earth since 1870? 1870 is a time because we're talking about pre-industrial age, and that is the time from where we take it as a base case to understand how far has the temperature or any other pollution level has risen, right? So what is the increase in global temperature? What do you think is the answer? Is it 80.8 degrees centigrade? Is it 1.16 degrees centigrade? It is 1.15 degrees centigrade, 1.5 degrees centigrade, or 2 degrees centigrade? Okay, let me just tell you what this house think. Now, majority of you think is 2 degrees centigrade. That's wrong. It's not even 1.5 degrees. So 14% of you made it right. About 1.16 degree is what the Earth temperature has risen. 2 degrees centigrade is what we have to do at the end of the century, right? So that is the limits that we actually are saying that about 1.5 degree temperature rise has to be controlled by the end of the century. We need to have that. But that doesn't look, the recent climate change report, IPCC report, shows that we will be achieving that is by mid-century or a little later in between, but not by end of century. So the way we are developing and the way we are polluting the environment, it looks like that we are going to reach 2 degrees centigrade. And each fraction of global warming will actually has impacts on profound impacts on people, right? And I'll tell you how it goes, right? So the answer is 1.16 degree. 25% of you right. Okay, let me just show you a very short video on the global temperature rise. This is just watch this, and the issues has been also dealt here. Here you go. So this is the video which is showing on global warming. Now, my question to you again is, and please look at this 3 options and vote for one of the options that you may have. As the global temperature rises, what happens? Is it average precipitation that increases? Precipitation means rainfall. Or does the rainfall decrease? Happens like the average precipitation decreases, or average precipitation is unchanged, right? So what do you think, whether the rainfall increases, decreases, or doesn't change much? When the global temperature rises, what happens? What is the impact of warming of the earth on us, especially in terms of the rainfall? Please vote. I see there are 32 participants, and very few of you have actually been online. So please do log in. It will be important for you to just, even for fun stuff, just try and do that. And I don't have any background data, okay? So I have disabled that. So I would not know who is voting for what, okay? So don't worry that I'll be judging you on your knowledge. That's not me. Okay, so I see overwhelming majority of you have said that the average precipitation increases. That's correct, because as more and more warming happens, the wetter areas become more wetter. Okay, so the areas which has higher rainfall will have more and more rainfall. The area which has been reeling in drought, they will have less and less rainfall. That has been the prediction that we have seen. But what is also happening is that higher rainfall doesn't mean that it will happen spread over the monsoon, right? What is actually going to happen is that the entire sometime the variability in climate is what will be instituted. That means you would not know when the rainfall will occur and how will it occur. And that's the whole part. Sometime, and you've seen the recent disaster which has happened in Uttarakhand is because of the variability in rainfall. In some of the districts in Uttarakhand, for example, 300 to 400 millimeters of rainfall has happened in just 24 hours. And that has been unprecedented in the human history. In early 80s, 1800, I think about 1860, when the first rain gauge station was, installed by the Britishers there, and we found that about 300 plus millimeter of rainfall has never been recorded in those districts, right? So this is what climate change does. It topples the entire monsoon patterns. the way in which rainfall occurs, because our economy is very strongly still related with the climate change, and that's where we have a problem. Okay, so I'll elaborate this further. Now, higher temperature also gives rise to what we call more active water cycle, and which means faster and greater evaporation and precipitation in the extreme weather events are going to be much more starker. And that is where this issue is going to be more problematic. Now, another question is, where have some of the strongest and earliest impacts of global warming occurred? So when you see there's a rising temperature or the global warming which is happening, what do you think is which region is going to affect more? Is it tropics? Is it northern latitude? Or is it distributed equally across all the planet? What do you think? I repeat this question. So when the global warming occurs, who does it affect more? Is it tropics? That means the region where we are in, which will be affected more. Is it northern latitudes? That means the North Pole and the South Pole. Or is it distributed equally all over the planet? What is your answer? Let's see. And I see that the northern latitude is the overwhelmingly, everybody is thinking that's a good, that's the correct answer. Yes, it is the northern latitude which is impacted. So some of the fastest warming regions in the planet are Alaska, Greenland, and Siberia. And these Arctic environments are highly sensitive to even the small fraction of temperature rise, okay, and which can melt the sea ice, the ice sheets, and the permafrost, right? And this leads to the changes in the Earth climate, that because these are the region which actually regulates the Earth's climate, right? And if these regions are impacted, this will topple the entire world's understanding of the climate system that we have at this moment. And that's the major worry. Just for those of you, little bit of map in terms of where is the Arctic Ocean. So if you see in this side on the top, this is where the Arctic Ocean, the Greenland is there. And then, on the top, the Europe. And this side is the Southern Pole, which is there. I have one question, and I'm sure some of you will know, there's a third pole. Okay, and the third pole is called, this is the North Pole and South Pole, and third pole is what we call the Himalayas. Yeah, Himalayas in the region, which is our own region, is called the third pole, and that is the largest concentration of ice beside the two poles that we have. And all the three poles actually are going to be severely affected, or are going to be affected, or is going to be affected, has been affected by the climate change. That's the whole region, right? There's one more shot of the Antarctica and the Arctic Ocean, as you see. And you may see some images of the ice sheet shrinking from these two areas. And that has been a worry for many climate scientists, okay? This question to you comes with a bang, because I'm sure it is everybody knows about it, but just to put it up, what was agreed in the Paris Agreement that came out of COP21 held in Paris in 2015? Now we are heading to Glasgow, COP26. What has agreed in Paris Agreement? So the first is to protect biodiversity and end the deforestation in the world's rainforest. Second is to keep global temperature below 2 degrees, and to pursue the path of limit global warming to 1.5 degrees, or is it the to limit sea level rise to 3 feet and above at the current level, or to pursue a goal of 100% clean and renewable energy? What do you think has been agreed in Paris Agreement? You have 30 seconds. Please log in and vote. Okay, let me just give you the result of the poll. Obviously, so I think this is no brainer again. Everybody thinks about overwhelming 80% of you think that the global temperature to keep the global temperature below 2 degrees and to pursue a path to limit warming to 1.5 degree. Okay, we have already reached 1.16 degree. So you can imagine this 1.5 degree by end of the century is a long goal. The recent climate change reports tells us that by 2050 itself, we will be achieving this. And that means it's going to be more and more, the future is more darker for us, more bleak for us, because as we are warming more and more, there'll be huge impact on the people. And I'll explain to you a little more as we go. Okay. Okay, now there comes the major elephant in the room, and I'm sure some of you will be interested to answer this. Let's see how much we know about this. Okay, so which are which of these countries emit the most of carbon dioxide? What do you think? This is an interesting question. I'm sure most of you would know the answer, but just to put it on the table. Which of these countries emit the most carbon dioxide? Is it USA? Is it China? Is it India? Or is it Russia? Which of these countries emit the most of the carbon dioxide? And we are talking about today's data as of now. Okay, let me just show you the result. Okay, so overwhelming of you think it's USA, but it's actually not USA, it's China. Okay, China at this moment is the greatest polluter of the world. USA has a number, but it is slightly different. I'll tell you what is it. I'm not telling you now because this is another quiz that I have. Okay. Okay. Let me just come to this one. Which of these countries have the highest per capita CO2 emission? Per capita. That means the CO2 emission divided by the country's population. So which of these countries have the highest per capita CO2 emission? What do you think? Is it China, India, USA, or Russia? Let's see. I'll close this poll in 30 seconds. So please go and vote. Okay, let me see what the answer is. Okay, so you think it's China, 45%, USA is 45%, so about half and half. Some of you think it is India and 0% thinks, but let me just tell you the answer. The answer definitely is China. China is the highest per capita carbon dioxide emission, and then followed by this one, but I'll give you the answer here, okay? But first, let me just tell you, this is 2019 data, countries emitting the most of the carbon dioxide. This is China is 21%. United States, about 15% of the carbon dioxide is emitted. Third is actually India, which is 7%. Fourth is Russian Federation, which is about 5%. And the rest of the world is about 21%. So that's the figure that we have. This is the latest figure of which country emits the most of the carbon dioxide. But per capita emission, and that's something which is really, figure which tells you. This is, in terms of the tons. In China, per capita emission is about 7.38. USA is 15.52. So sorry, I think there was an issue there. It's the USA which has the highest per capita CO2 emission than China. Then China is the second. China actually is not second. Then Russia is actually 11.44. Okay, India is very minuscule, 1.91. Okay, so imagine the trajectory that India's development has. The CO2 emission is the per capita emissions is one of the lowest in India. Okay, in the countries, and they're looking at the size of the country is very much less. So our lifestyle is much more sustainable as compared to other people. Okay, though we are altogether as a country, we are second largest emitter, third largest emitter. Okay, globally, which of these sectors emits the largest percentage of greenhouse gas emission? What do you think is which sector will be emitting most of the greenhouse gas emissions? Is it transport? Is it building? Is it electricity and heat production? Or is it agriculture? What is your take? Sridhar, how much time we have? We will go on till what time?
Anjal, now time is 5:16.
Yeah,
We have time till 5:30, but maybe we can, but we need to commission some time for QA also.
yeah, yeah.
So maybe 5-10 minutes. Is it okay?
Yeah. I'll just close it then. I'll just, yeah. Okay, fine. Thank you so much. I'll just close the poll and then I'll get into the issue there. Yeah. Okay. Let me just see the answer and I'll just tell you. So overwhelming, you're right. Electricity and heat production is the one. Transport is the later part of it, but the answer is heat. This is the sector which has the largest emitter of greenhouse gas emission. Okay, and if you see this slide that I have is the energy and energy in altogether. If you see this energy used in industry, whether it is energy used in transport or energy used, so altogether, if you see the energy is that is the global greenhouse emission by sector. So energy sector uses most of the greenhouse gases. Okay, let me not just in the interest of time, let me just go to my second part of the question of the presentation, which is actually on net zero. Okay, so this is a presentation that I'm just trying to explain to you what should be India's stand on the when we go to COP26, and this is based on the different statement, because India doesn't have an official statement as of now. I have been watching very closely in terms of the statements that's coming out from the officials as well as from the minister, and then my presentation is actually a speculation of what would be the India stand. But I am trying to just explain to you what should be the stand, and I'm sure there could be a consonance there as well. But before we go into that, I'm sure the understanding of what net zero is important, because the focus of COP26 is going to be what will be the time then we should be committing to net zero. And that's the major elephant in the room which is there. But what is actually net zero? Now, net zero is that you have one side is that you have the emission, and other side you have the ways in which you can remove emissions, right? So net zero is a balance between the amount of greenhouse gas that we produce and how much we remove. How do we remove greenhouse gas emission? By more and more planting more and more trees, protecting our water bodies, things which is fixing the environment, those things, having greener energy, for example, or having better transport system. You see the electricity generation is where the most of the greenhouse gas emission happens. So all that if we fix, then we are trying to maintain net zero perspective here. Okay. So it means by 20, the commitment that is being sought at this moment by the COP26 is by 2050, we should be producing less carbon than we actually take it out in the atmosphere. Okay, so that means by 2050, all our emission and all our measures to curb the emission should have a net zero understanding, and that's what we are talking about. So there is a balance between the emission that we are doing and the ways in which we are curbing emission. That has to be zero altogether. It's a zero sum game. Okay. But we India being part of what we call a global south conglomeration, and there's a divide between industrialized nation, which is global north, and the developing nation, which is global south. And there's this global divide is where I'm trying to focus my presentation at this moment. Now, what are the contentious issues? There are three issues that I'll try to flag here. First is the target is that the world must reach net zero by 2050. And it should be it should cut the emission by half by 2030. Okay, so that's the number one. That all the countries should cut this emission by half. Whatever the level that we have this moment, we should cut it by half by 2030, and that means there are certain policy measures has to be taken, and you have to work backward to show how much you can cut by 2030. So half of the emission at this moment has to be cut, and the total net zero should happen by 2050. That's the part. This is the 1.5 degree pathways. Now, second is the global north to cut emission by half by 2030 and net zero by 2050. That's the second proposition, that they should be actually the issue that global south is raising is that there's an inequity, because you have developed earlier than us and you have polluted in the process. You have polluted the environment. So we have lesser carbon space for us to develop, and that's the major contentious issue between the global south and the global north. Now they're saying that global north to cut the emission by half by 2030 and net zero by 2030. But they are not on the equal footing because global north has already developed. Now global south is developing. And then if you're asked to curb your emission, you have to take a very, very different path, which is probably not in your horizon at this moment. That's the point of contention. The industrialized north and the past polluters, because they were the one at this moment. You see, USA, China, India's are the greatest polluters. Per capita pollution, CO2 emission, India is very small, minuscule almost as compared to other industrialized nations. But at the same time, there's no historicity in this whole argument. And that's why we're trying to say that industrialized north and the past polluters have more carbon space than the global south. Okay, and that's the point where the contention issue is coming. Now, if you look at the second thing, which is very closely linked with this, is called the climate finance. In the earlier commitment that we had from the global north, especially the industrialized nation, is to reach by about $100 billion dollars of climate finance per year. That's the goal. So the collective goal was about $100 billion per year in 2021. Now, out of this, if you see, there's only $12 billion has been actually received at this moment. So the $100 billion per year was the target. We have received a very minuscule part of it. And that's the major problem, is that when you are saying that you have polluted the environment, the global north has polluted the environment, we are at the receiving end. Country like Bhutan, for example, is carbon neutral. They actually have not polluting anything, but they are at the receiving end because the landslide is happening, because all the change in the environment is directly affecting country like Bhutan, Nepal, which has been has not been polluting at all. And this is the whole issue. But the loss and damage that they are occurring at this moment has to be compensated by people who have polluted the environment. And that's exactly the whole point. So, but here, whatever the pledges has not been done. And we at this moment about 12 billion in the grant which has come. Very quickly, I'll just tell you what has been missed out. So the missed target, if you see, the total target is about 100 billion here. And we have only reached about, some portion of it has been in, and most of them is actually in bilateral finance and multilateral finance. If you see this figure, private finance has been slightly lesser here, but that's the whole, at this moment, that's the thing. And if you see, most of the money which has been pledged by or has been given by the global north actually has been in the terms of loans than in the grants, and that's another part. So the countries in the global south is saying that you have to give us grant in aid, not loan. Okay, because loan we have to again repay, and where do we repay from? Okay. So this is the last but one slide before we open it up for discussion. But what are the things that we are asking? What India should be asking for? One is about the 100 billion pledge that has been long seen as a minimal, a bare minimum to which has to be increased also. The demand now is that since you failed to deliver 100 billion, you should actually US 500 billion. That is for the entire global south, okay, for next 5 years. And that is something that you have to pledge for, because you have not been able to pay for the damage that you've done. That's number one. And I'll give you one example of why this is saying. See, for example, Bangladesh government, it is spending $3 billion on combating climate change, but all the measures that they're taking, and which is about 7% of its overall budget. Okay, so where is country like Bangladesh is going to get the money from to fix the environment which they have actually not contributed to, right? So that is where the loss and damage issues comes in. Now, global north should move to the net zero by 2030. Global south will move only by 2050. So now this is the space which they are saying that, okay, now some people have polluted the environment or contributed to climate change, and the people who have not done that, both of them, the goal has to be the same. That is inequitable, and it's not standing in the way of what we call the climate justice part of it. So it has to be an equitable climate space, and historical responsibility of the past polluters must be taken into account. So that's the number 3, that for countries like India and other developing countries, there should be, if it is for 2050, then industrialized north should have net zero by 2030. How can they do that? That is the point of contentions, but this is something that one is asking. They should also look at for cheaper options, but the technology transfer part has to be taken place. That means you have the technology, please do transfer the green technology especially, or the alternative energy sources technology. That is the transfer has to happen. That at this moment is not happening, or happening at a very, very meager scale. Okay, so this is what I will stop my presentation at this moment, and I will open it up for discussion. I'm sorry for slightly delayed timing here, but I'll definitely take this up as your question. So over to you, Sridhar.
Yeah. Thank you, Anjal, for that very nice interactive session and talking about the net zero strategies, and of course about climate finance, which is very important. We will now open the floor for a question answer session. Request you to type your questions or raise your hand. We can do either. Maybe Anjal,
I see two questions already, so I'll start answering because time is short.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so the first question is by Mahesh, and Mahesh is saying from the day one, India and China have been arguing that the climate crisis exists because of the excess emission by the developed West. Is India going to join with China in countering the West in the upcoming COP? Is India able to bell the cat? Okay, that's a big question. Belling the cat is, I'm not sure how far it will be easy, but I think it's important for alignment. And as I was talking to Rekha just a couple of hours before, she's from one of the journalists who is also probably here. I was telling her that I think the strategic directions that India and China are taking to come together as a force to reckon with, because these two countries have actually been disbenefited by the, as I said, the climate, the carbon space the carbon space has been not been equitably distributed across the world. So I, as a person, as a professional from Global South, also representing Global South, I feel strongly that they should come together. On strategic point, they should always come together. So that's one point, because the negotiation is happens only when you are forced to reckon with. So you join together. And I also feel that the small island nations, because they are the first one going to be very severely affected by cyclones, by sea level rise, they should also come together. So Global South should come together as a group and definitely combat Global North. That's number one. Second is also because I think the climate finance is the contentious issues. We need to also form some strategies of how do we do that. Whether we'll be able to bell the cat, that time will tell us. Next 15 days from 31st October is 31st of October, you will see that. Okay, so that's one. Thank you so much, Mahesh, for a wonderful question that you asked. Let me go to Ajit. Ajit is asking, is India doing enough on climate change? If not, what is major thing that needs to be done? And Ajit, thank you again for asking this question. I think I have written my recent op-ed, which has appeared in Times of India, and I'll try and reiterate that one. I think at this moment, India, where is climate change? How is climate change issue being tackled with? Which ministry is it there? Okay, so the Ministry of Climate Change, Environment, Forest, and Climate Change. It's an added ministry to Ministry of Environment and Forest. And I have been arguing that if you have a backyard ministry or the porch ministry or porch desk in the Ministry of Environment, Climate, Environment, and Forest, this will not do any good. I think climate change is much more than environment and forest. It is also about energy. It's also about the issues that needs coordination with different ministries. So because climate change is actually cutting across all the issues, be it women and child welfare, rural development, water resources, or any other issues. So I feel that the structural change has to happen at the central level, where the separate Ministry for Climate Change should be carved out. And that's my point that I'm trying to put forward in all my writings. Thank you so much for asking this question.
Yeah, Anjal, one question from my side, if you permit.
Yeah.
Just wanted to know what can we expect from COP 626, especially for the Indian businesses and the policymakers, respectively.
Yeah. So thank you again, Sridhar. This is first of all, what we expect overall from the COP process. We need to wait and watch, because one only has to, once you are there, you know what the negotiations are taking. And there are some backhand channels which has been opened, which I know from my sources in the ministry or otherwise, which is actually going around. One question about China also came from those things, which probably the journalists know is more than I do, is that the backend channels has been opened. So I think there's this galvanization. I feel that India is poised to be the world leader in actually galvanizing the force that we have, and then there should be to taking that process forward, because I think we have a couple of advantages. One is that we are democracy, and because we are democracy, we are also listened to and respected by many people. Second is we also one of the emerging economy, the larger market that we have. So there also we have certain advantage where the global north, who probably would like to open up, use our market, also would have that advantage for us. So I think that is one thing, and I feel that the Indian delegation should be able to tackle that and in COP26. Now, how does businesses help? I think there's climate change has to be taken more from the opportunity perspective, especially by the businesses, because many areas, for example, energy transition is a huge area. And I think already, say, for example, many electric scooters are coming. So there were overwhelming response for Ola scooter, for example, right? These are the areas which innovations is happening. And I think the more and more sectors, especially the businesses, will come forward and use this as an opportunity rather than as a curse in the sense. So I feel that the businesses should be able to pull this up, and they should actually support India to take the pledge that by 2050 we will try to go and get net zero, or that one, but we will be also working backward to help the government to achieve that one.
Yeah, thank you. One more thing. What percentage of climate change issues per se do you think are due to behavioral issues, and what percentage could be addressed through the current existing technologies? Just a broad figure if you have any.
Yeah. So I mean, definitely individual behavior change is needed, especially in the way we deal with ourselves, the lifestyle that we have, and all that is contributing to climate change. But I feel the large scale issues are much higher in terms of the global warming, and the CO2 emission that we have is something that the government has to respond to the policy measures that they have taken, especially, and also control the individual behavior. For example, if we are going for a rapid transport, which is electricity driven, for example, and there's infrastructure, there's an incentive for individuals to turn into from the petrol vehicle to an electric vehicle. But then these measures have to come from the government. So I think there is a balance, the delicate balance needed. But just give you one small example. For my personal example is about the waste that we generate, right? So all of us there's a kitchen waste that happens. What I do is that I segregate waste at home. There's no government regulations and municipal regulation at this moment. We the person who comes to collect the waste, you can give him or her in any format. But what we do is that we separate. We find that about 80% of our actually waste is something that is organic waste, and I can turn that into a manure. With very small, easy. I bought some. There's a startup in Hyderabad which has been selling this small device which is costing only 2,000 rupees. Which actually there are 4 or 5 buckets, one on the top of another one, and then you can start putting the organic waste, and then it turns into manure, which I'm using for my garden. I'm sure there's a small stuff which all of us can do at our level, which is not very difficult to implement, right? I see one question here from Sushil. Can I just take that?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So have environmentalists or organizations made any suggestions to the government? Sushil, that I'm aware of. There has been a lot of writing which has been there in the newspapers and the social media, and I'm not sure. In fact, that is one issue which I'm always raising, is that we need to have the Ministry of Climate Change, so that there's someone who looks after this. So at this moment, there's a small desk. I'm not sure who's actually heading the desk also, because we don't know about, it all gets culminated there. So I feel very strongly that someone in the government should be looking into this one, and that's the major point also. I also been part of IPCC delegation, IPCC scientist group, and I sometimes gets very disappointed to see the level of a lack of response from the government, because the delegation that goes sometime, and if probably off the record, okay, I don't want to say this at this moment, but 101, I can tell you some more stories when you call me. Thank you. Okay, there are some questions, 2 more questions. Sushil, I've answered your question. Thank you. And if you need more, you can just give me a call and I'll talk to you, give you some more insight information. Okay, Paniharan is asking, do we need to look at climate change in terms of Orient and accidental worldviews? Oh my God. Okay. Okay. That's a very good question, but I'm not sure if I have a straight answer to this one. But I feel, and Paniharan, thanks so much for asking this question, because that shows that you are thinking on this line. Let's just talk sometime and figure this out together. But I will just tell you, for the sake of answering this question here, is that there's definitely something that we can derive from our own scriptures and our own past that we have, which can control, as Sridhar is saying, about individual behavior. I think that's one part which is very, very important for us to look at. So I wouldn't call it Oriental, but I'll definitely call it like the experience that we have, the experiential living that we have. There's a lot that we can learn from our past, which can be contributing to things. See, so far as Paniharan, you see, are all the emission, but per capita emission is still very low. And I'm sure in your house, in my house, we use one t-shirt, we use it to the maximum. Okay, so once it is, you wear it for 1 year or 2 years, then you also turn it into a jhadu pocha stuff, then you also turn in third. So we are circular economy from day one. I have, only in the recent thing, and I always tell my daughter not to wear certain things, but I know that I'm very, very conscious, and my whole house is very conscious. And like me, there are my families and all very conscious about what we are using. So circular economy is in our blood. It is in our ancient literature, which was there. So I totally feel that it is there. It just needs to be evoked. So please do write and do some more work on this one. I'll be very happy to support you, Paniharan.
Thank you, Anjal, for a nice, wonderful presentation and interaction. We all enjoyed, and I'm sure you also equally enjoyed it.
Yes,
thank you. We are now at the fag end of our today's proceedings. It's like it is, in some of the South Indian cultures, it says without having curd rice at the end of the meal, it's not complete. So here, the vote of thanks is the curd rice. And so actually, David Moyer is the Public Affairs Officer of the U.S. Consulate General, Hyderabad, and has been a phenomenal support to shape this particular engagement. David, can I interrupt you? Can you give vote of thanks?
Sure, Sridhar. Thank you so much. And again, thanks to our good friends and partners at ISB for organizing this discussion. Thanks to all the speakers who have shared their knowledge and their time. It's pretty clear to me that issues like climate change do require a global response. And that's why the United States is excited for this opportunity to talk with India, to share each other's vision for the Indo-Pacific so that we can find our common ground, accentuate those points, and work together. And earlier today, the U.S. government signed a deal here in Hyderabad with the BioE pharma company to increase vaccine production. So that's just another example of how our two countries are working together, and how Hyderabad plays a very important role in that. So even though we don't think of the Indo-Pacific maybe being on our back door, Hyderabad is certainly playing an active role. And again, we appreciate Sridhar and all the team at ISB for their support. And again, thanks to all the speakers and to our colleagues in the media. We hope this was useful, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dave, for that short and crisp vote of thanks. In fact, on behalf of ISB too, I thank all of you for taking your busy time for this wonderful workshop.